My name is Espen Grøndahl. I'm head of security at the University of Oslo in Norway. I've been there in the same position for 17 years, so I've been through the whole journey. First, a little bit about the university. It is quite old. We have about 7,000 to 8,000 employees, 27 students, but because we cooperate a lot in research, we have about 60,000 user accounts, so it's quite large and complex. About 9,000 million Norwegian crowns in fundings and revenue each year. The IT department is quite large in Norwegian scale. We have 380 full-time employees. Everything from IT help desk to operations to quite advanced development, advanced research support, and so on. So we are a little bit larger than the rest of the universities in Norway. And some of the reason for that is that we both provide services for the University of Oslo, but also provide a lot of services for the rest of the sector. We develop some solutions that are used by the rest of the educational sector and largely by the health sector in Norway. We have the majority of our services on-prem still, but we are slowly moving to the cloud and of course using Microsoft 365. Our cloud journey started quite slow because we have always had internal legal advisors, and we have had a strong backing from the upper management to comply with the law and be secure. We have our CERT team was one of the oldest in Norway, established in 2005. We are first members. We have CCERT members, and we also have on board 3 full-time legal advisors, and they are organized together with the IT security team. So we have had a strong cooperation between the legal and the security people, and as many security people, we was quite anxious when this cloud thing come and hit the world. So we started quite slow. We was not sure if we could do it in a legal way, so we didn't jump on the cloud wagon when everybody else did. But and one reason that we didn't do it is that because our size and we do most of our operations on-prem, we was able to provide the users with almost the same services without going to the cloud at once. But in the beginning, the cloud adoption was driven by the users. They started using Dropbox and Google and MS365 to cooperate with other research projects. So little by little, we also had to go that way. And later, the latest years, it has been driven by Microsoft, of course, to move the computers to Intune and also to use OneDrive, SharePoint, Zoom, and so on. And then to the challenges. Our main problem with the cloud solution is that all you have is logs. If something happens and the system goes down or get hacked or get offline, all you have to try to solve the solution or find out what happened is to look at the logs. And if you have not planned for logging beforehand, you have nothing. And that has hit us sometimes. When we have, for example, a data breach or a leakage on some of our on-prem services, we usually have quite good logs. And if we don't have logs on that system, we have some logs in the nearby the systems. We have some NetFlow, we have some logs on the management system, we have some logs on the alerting system. So we usually can say something about how big the breach is and who has accessed the data and so on, kind of contain the incident. But if you have not planned for that in the cloud, you're stuck with the little logs you have. Another point is that, and it's a long time since last time we had a big incident, but when we had incidents, we have also been able to reconstruct the attack and the incident by doing everything from disk forensics to memory forensics, and that is quite hard to do in a cloud solution if you haven't planned for it beforehand. And one other problem that we had is that some of the cloud adoption was driven by the builders, and by that I mean the developers. They started using cloud services without doing it in cooperation with the operations. So they just took the easy way out, set up some servers and starting deploying services. And by that, they didn't have the built-in security and management solution that we have on the on-prem services. And we also had some quite bad experience with governance. Many, even big providers, say they have everything in place, both logging and securing, but when we actually do try to verify it, it's quite often not that way. Yeah, and just quick some ways we have solved some of those problems. We have a big on-prem log solution built on Elasticsearch. We are moving these days to OpenSearch instead, but we try to collect all the logs, even from the big cloud solutions back home, so we can have everything on-prem and do our management there and also have some detection rules. We have also built quite a large on-prem, I call it private cloud solution. We have this TSD, which is services for sensitive data. It's quite big in Norway, about 2,000 research projects and 10,000 users. It's a high security environment to do research on the most sensitive health data. We have a solution, what we call NREC, in cooperation with the University of Bergen in Norway, and that is an OpenStack solution, kind of on-prem EC2. It's not that advanced, but I think we deliver some million compute hours to CERN, for example, from that solution, and it's about 1,000, 1,500 VMs, I think. And we have also these other solutions. So we are kind of trying to balance out. We have a lot of solutions on-prem for the researchers, and we use cloud solutions for the rest. And one of our key points to manage this is to build knowledge and capabilities. As long as we can build good enough solutions on-prem, the push from the users to use cloud services hasn't been that big, so we have been able to do it in a quite controlled manner. Other solutions or things that have helped us in the process is that we have established a process at the Oslo University where researchers need to apply if they want to use new services, and it has to be approved by their manager, so they can send in and ask for new services, and we kind of go through them with the legal advisor and the technical people, and they decide if we go through with it or not, to keep down the so we don't get every cloud solution running at the university. We also made this cloud checklist. It's fortunately not only Norwegian, but it's kind of some points that they have to go through when they take and use cloud solution. And maybe the two biggest things that have helped us is in start of the GDPR project, we made this internal classification system that is now standard in the whole of the sector in Norway, where we use green, yellow, red, and black label for different sensitivity data. And then we have made this storage guide where we map the on-prem and cloud solution with the colors. So for example, we say that the Microsoft solution is only approved for up to yellow data, but the on-prem solutions are approved for red data, and the high security solutions are approved for black data. And in that way, we it has been easier to communicate to researchers which solution they can use for which data, and that has also been kind of a way to keep down the pressure on new cloud services. Asbjørn?
Thank you. So I tried to make a fancy title, Embracing Cloud Technology Lessons Learned from Sikt's Transition. So we'll try to walk you through that. I've already introduced myself, so what I need to maybe say is that I'm also a technical security person. Yeah, as Thorsen said, a co-lead of the EUNIS Security Special Interest Group. So, Sikt, what is Sikt? We are a company with approximately 450 employees. I don't have the exact number now, but it was established at 1st of January 2022, and it's a merge of what was known earlier as HEAnet, EUNIT, and NSD. So Sikt have it's a role that we have that is under the Ministry of Education and Research, and our mission is to support the education sector through technology. So when the merge happened, we needed a rapid transition into the cloud. That was the plan, making everything work as quick as possible and get into the cloud with a lot of things, not everything, but a lot of services. So we had a very short time that we needed to make a lot of decisions. And of course, we had challenges that was inevitable because of all the merges that we have had upon the last years. We also have a bit of complexity that every organization brought with them. So we did in afterside, when we look back, we see that we should have been planning beforehand, but it wasn't the time. So, but I also want to say that we still have on-prem services. We have legacy systems and secure things that we need to be sure that is secure enough. Like, for instance, Mattermost. It's a chat that we use within the higher education institutions, IRTs, and we still have services at USIT, where Espen is CISO. So the experience here, we needed to suddenly do stuff that we haven't done before. For instance, to operate the email server, for instance, suddenly it's in the cloud, and we needed to learn a lot of things about DMARC, DKIM, SPF, and a lot of other things to configure and set up. So it was a steep curve on the learning part there. So it was also quite easier for the development teams or autonomous teams exploring these solutions and use them, and they are doing that quite good. But the security is lagging behind. So when the developer teams are using a lot of new features and have a great time, me as a security guy and my team are having trouble with making things secure enough. So the planning of our security and infrastructure remediation, we need to step back and maybe do some planning now, and it's not that easy to do. It's much easier to do that before you step into the cloud. So yeah, so we have to make a project or something to streamline it much more, and to make the infrastructure in a good way. So we also need to have strategies to reduce complexity. to get the complexity down and see the security architecture, how we're going to implement it. We wish to implement zero trust and segmentation of networks. We have segmentation of networks, and we have several zero trust mindset, but we need to implement it much better and much more. And we also will align with the best practices for cloud security in the future. We are working with it every day, but yeah, we are not completely there yet. So the importance of planned transitions and security foresight is important for us in the future, and balancing the innovation with security in the cloud computing part. So the key takeaways from our perspective is we need to do, in hindsight, plan good before the transition, and we need to build and improve the competence of the people that's going to use it, because it's big, and because of the complexity we have, yeah, a lot to learn, both in Amazon Web Service, in Google Cloud, in M365, the Microsoft cloud. So it's a lot to learn, and maybe we don't need all the three clouds. Yeah, and also the balanced innovation with the security. Security, we are not that many people, and we need to learn a lot of new stuff in the security. Yeah, the security part, and yeah, implement the robust security frameworks also. So that was what we had.
Thank you so much, Asbjørn and Espen. I would like to invite now Christoph to present his presentation about challenges with migration to cloud services, and after that we will have a Q&A session.
Okay. Oh, let's go. Here we go. It's a little bit slow. Okay. High school, Hochschule Düsseldorf, University for Applied Science. Perhaps you know Düsseldorf in Western Germany. We have a rather new campus, new buildings. We moved there in 2015, and it's a small university. If you compare it to Oslo, the numbers are really lower. We have 30 people in our central IT department. It's not too much, but you can see all in all much less employees and students. Okay, I have to use the mouse button. So there's another university in Düsseldorf, in the south of Düsseldorf. That's the HEAnet Universität. So don't confuse it. And okay, I joined HSD in 2019, as I told you before, and before I spent about 20 years in the industries. And okay, now I'm the CISO and Deputy Data Protection Officer. At first, I want to tell you about our status in migration to M365. Long time ago, students' mailboxes had been moved into the cloud. And when COVID came, everything became much more dynamic. We started to use Teams, and even the employees started to use M365, certainly also with Teams and SharePoint Online, OneDrive Online. And in parallel, we also still used all those on-premise services. There's also on-premise SharePoint, on-premise Exchange services. And the next step would be to migrate slowly but continuously into the cloud. And our next plan was also to move the employees' mailboxes to Exchange Online. That should be, the plan was to do it in the first quarter of 2024, but then our executive committee told us, stop, at first you have to do a data protection impact assessment. And this is what we have been working on for nearly half a year right now. we're optimistic to finish it within the next weeks, but still it is not, and so we can't do this next migration into the cloud. Okay, challenges. What are the challenges? I had at first to think about what are the challenges. So I would identify 3 major challenges we had to master or try to master during the last years. At first, this is okay, mastering the M365 and Azure security itself. Stay GDPR compliant while implementing all those security features, and in parallel to deal with the stakeholders. That's more psychology than technique. And I will tell you about this right now. Okay, stakeholders. All those committees, I think we all have them at the universities, executive board, personnel members and students and Senate and all those people who can influence our work. So first chapter concerning the M365 security, this is learning. Very simplified picture is of M365 might be like this. You have data, a lot of functions to use data, and you have users and rights defined in, and then we have, okay, this is done in Microsoft Entra ID, former Azure Active Directory, and they have regular users who want to use data and functions. You have devices, this is green, this might be okay. Then you have guests, you have third-party applications, and then you have any kind of adversaries who might try to get access to the data. And it's the general idea of M365 to provide all those functions, but you need interconnectivity. There must be holes into the border around it because all this has to exchange data. That's the challenge in the security, to keep it safe. And okay, Microsoft knows about this problem, and they give us a lot of tools. Perhaps you have seen this before, the cybersecurity reference architecture for Microsoft. Extremely complex picture, a lot of stuff to learn. Some other things like XDR, very nice tools, Defender, online portals, a lot to see, a lot to define. And even more you can see in Azure. There we have Microsoft Sentinel, and you combine it to a nice CM and to do a lot of things to make the environment more secure. But if you ask me, yes, it is rocket science. It's very, very complex task to learn all those things. And I wouldn't dare to say I'm understanding all this. I would also say I don't know anyone who's understanding all those things. It's really complex. You have to study and learn it. And when you start with this, okay, you go to the online documentation of Microsoft and learning programs. You start on 1 page, 3 minutes later, reading in parallel 3 pages, 5 minutes later, it's even more. And after a quarter of an hour, you totally lost all this information. It's really overwhelming. And we desperately ask for any kind of cookbook or ultimate manual for this, but there is none. Microsoft doesn't provide something like that officially, and I think it's quite understandable. If you try to write down this in a manual, it will be outdated anytime before it can be finalized. So try to search for other sources, community best practice, very, very in quality, normally always incomplete and outdated. And you start learning by doing and do a lot of experimental work and trial and error. I think this is the most promising way to learn what is going on. Then you might ask good consultants, but how to find them and how to pay them. At HSD, I think now we are lucky we have found a company we can rely on. So this might also be a good way. But it's really a challenge. Then you can't use all those security tools from Microsoft out of the box. You have to prepare your organization for this. So you need organizational preparation before you can start implementing the security features. There's very central concept. This is conditional access in M365. You can define rules and automatisms for handling data, but before this, you have to define your own data classification. You have to define rules for information handling, rules for security automation, and you have to define multi-factor authentication. And even this is a problem with us. We're still discussing how to implement multi-factor authentication at our university. It's still not solved. Finally, we have to agree on any kind of second factor. It's an endless discussion. There's something else like Intune, it's kind of endpoint and mobile device management in M365, but you need standardized devices. Once again, you have defined rules for using those devices. So a lot of things you have to organize before you can implement all those nice security tools. Next, you always have to think about the principle of shared responsibility. You might have a look at this illustration from Microsoft, where you can see where is the responsibility of Microsoft and where is the customer responsibility. It depends on the kind of cloud service you use. And in Microsoft 365, we are in software as a service, the left column. And you cannot switch it on out of the box. Once again, you have to prepare it yourself and do a lot of things yourself. And if you have a look at this in detail, all this is security stuff. What you have to organize and learn and manage yourself. I would add to this point security monitoring, security alerting, security automation. This means it's a challenge. It's a lot of work for the customer. But on the other hand, it's your chance to stay in the driver's seat, at least partially. You're not completely delivered to Microsoft's mercy in those cases. You still have the possibility to take your fate in your own hands in this, if you have learned it and you have enough manpower to do it. Now, GDPR compliance within M365 security. As I told you, right now we're performing the DPIA at the HSD, and one central message or central idea we found, or central risk, that was the risk of data collection for security monitoring in M365, Defender, Entra ID, Sentinel, and because this leads to a transparent user scenario. It's really like a big brother. I can show you some examples. This is a Defender portal. You can identify a lot of incidents, everything what is going on. You have to look personally what the people are doing in the system, what they're reading, what they're doing, what they are downloading, when did they do it, where did they do it, a lot of things. You might define your own queries on that. You can find out where do they serve. It's recorded also by the Defender client. You can see what's in their email subjects. It's very, very much you can find out about people in this. Even more you can see in the Azure portal, once again, where are people, what are they doing, what applications do they use? Do they log in from risky locations, and so on and so on. It's really endless. The biggest collection of data you find in Microsoft Sentinel. It's a part of Azure. Even more you can define, once again, with a special query language, your reports of your own. This is very helpful sometimes, but in the end, you find out a lot of things about people. For provisioning and securing M365, a lot of data are collected in those functions. And in the end, you build up a huge data pool of personal behavioral data. And that might be really risky from the point of view of data protection, data privacy. Perhaps you might even say everything what can be technically recorded in M365 is recorded, can be seen in tables, and can be analyzed. And you must have a look at this. So you can do perfect profiling for people using M365, and you must find a way to deal with this. For me, this is perfect as CISO regarding information security. We have a fantastic magnifying glass to see what's going on in Microsoft 365. If you compare it to on-premise services, I would say I'm completely blind. I can not at all in any way see as deeply what is going on in the services like it can do on Microsoft 365. But it's not just a magnifying glass, it's a microscope. And you don't see services, and you do see people and can analyze what they are doing if you really want to. And so we have a saying in Germany, don't make the goat the gardener. That's my double role right now as DPO and CISO, or don't let the fox guard the hens, I think is the acronym in English. So you have to assess this big brother risk. And I think it's not a bad idea to perform such a DPIA. It's really a lot of work, but I think it's worth it because it helps to understand what's really going on. So before you can do this, once again, you have to learn all those security techniques. You have to respect the principle of shared responsibility, but this is the same we had before. So final challenge, deal with the stakeholders. I would say it's a problem of pride and prejudice. So whenever I'm talking about, yes, I'm doing something with M365 and we try to implement more services and use more functions, I experience a general skepticism towards any kind of commercial cloud service. The bigger the service, the bigger the company, the bigger the skepticism. And I always feel, yeah, somehow I have to justify myself to do all this stuff in the cloud. And leads to somehow questionable opinions, somehow strange sometimes. Question is generally asked, how do you want to stay secure with M365? And I answer with a counter question, how do you want to become secure without it? Because we are not secure on premise. And I observe relative underestimation of on-premise security events and vulnerabilities compared with M365. So people ask me, have you heard about Storm 50.5.8 hole in Microsoft security? Wasn't this devastating? Yes, I say, okay, this really concerns me, but we were not affected at all. But in the same time, I had to open 4 cases at the Cybercriminal Police Department for real attacks. I had to start 10 cases with the Data Protection Authority because of violation of data protection. And those real attacks, this is not something virtual at Microsoft. This is real, what is happening with us. Have you heard about this? And somehow I have the feeling that people are not so much interested in the real happenings than they're more concerned about what might happening anywhere in the Microsoft cloud. So people quite often expect much more from the cloud than they can expect from the on-premise services. And the question you always have to ask yourself, can you really fulfill Article 32 of GDPR on-prem? And I quite often have to say, no, we can't. So this leads to sticking to certain prejudice. So always a topic is telemetry and diagnosis data. And can there be more in those anonymous data than the security reportings I showed you before in this Big Brother scenario? I think no. If you see what you can always see in the system, there cannot be more in those telemetry and diagnosis data. But the second this case, this Big Brother scenario isn't discussed in public. Or the other thing, M365 is generally bad because it's USA, it's NSA. Have a look at the latest statistics from Microsoft. And what do you think, which country raises most enforcement requests to Microsoft? Have a look at the table. Okay, it's difficult to see. Summary is, it's Germany. Germany, 12 points. Germany raises most requests to Microsoft, and people quite often are surprised to hear about this. Okay, I think it's really a general problem, and we can only improve knowledge about all those things with the people. We heard it just before in the other talk. this is a real problem. We have to work on this. So another problem is slow decision making. I think it's not just a problem of German bureaucracy. It's a general problem of public services that it always takes a long time asking all those stakeholders and decision makers before you can implement something new. And it's directly related to the problem of organizational preparation in M365. Things are very, very slow. It takes year by year by year before you make a real progress in implementing those cloud services. My experience from industry is quite different. It's much faster, all those things. So final challenge perhaps for me is, don't become too enthusiastic about M365 when you're playing around with all those tools and toys. It might be very fascinating technically, but always be prepared, step back, think over it again, and don't become too enthusiastic about all those things. That's the end. Thank you.
So we have prepared a small agenda for today. I will start telling about SURF itself. I will then go over to the SURF security baseline and will provide a short demo. And then I will give the floor to my colleague Sandy, which will talk about our experience with using the SURF security baseline so far. So let me start by talking about SURF. What is SURF exactly? So SURF is the National Research and Education Network in the Netherlands. So we are basically GÉANT, but on a Dutch national level. We have 3 roles from our perspective. So we are a service provider. We provide services. I will give a few examples of our security services in a bit. We are also an association, so also a place where our members meet each other, talk with each other, and take decisions together. And we also like to think of ourselves as an innovation workshop. So we also try to stimulate innovation from our members by bringing them together and by facilitating and coordinating with them. So we have about 150 members. All of them are in the education and research sector. They are varying from universities to University of Applied Sciences, but also to secondary vocational education. We also have some healthcare and some independent administrative bodies as our members. We are, from a security standpoint, we have an own department within SURF. We have approximately 30 or so colleagues working at the Trust and Security Department, divided in 3 teams. So we have the technical team, the security technology team. We also have the security awareness and the organization. This is more the soft kind of soft part of information security. We basically keep busy with governance, risk, and compliance, awareness, and all the soft skills of cybersecurity. And we also have a team for trust and identity. And SURF itself, as a total, in total, we have about 600 full-time employees working at us. So I have mentioned that we provide many services. These are specifically the security services. So we have a VPN service that all our members use to allow them to connect securely. We have a mail filter. We have a service that where we organize a yearly and a bi-yearly crisis simulation, where the whole Netherlands basically for 1 day or 2 days all pretend that we are under attack, and we try to see how things go. SURF Audit, which is I'm the product manager of. This is basically the service where we make agreements with our members on the standards and the assessment frameworks that we use together. We have an awareness service, certificate service, incident response service, multi-factor authentication service, SOC SIEM service, and a domain service where you can manage your DNS and also register domains by SURF. But we also do a lot more. We have we have 2 communities called Skipper and Skirt, and they both have 500 members. These are basically the technical and the not so technical communities of cybersecurity where members meet each other and work together. We provide trainings and workshops for our members, and we publish a lot of reports about how cybersecurity is organized in the sector. We basically do this because, and I'm sure you organize this from your own country, we have in the past had a lot of cybersecurity incidents, and these are only the ones that have reached the media. So you know that there's tons that have not reached the media. They had various degrees of impacts, from just from a data leak that is big to basically full-on ransomware, where the university had to be shut down for two weeks. So of course, this caused not only the institution to care more about cybersecurity, but us at SURF, the ministry as itself, even the politics, our parliament even started asking questions about the state of cybersecurity in our sector. We had the inspection that came and wrote multiple reports about how it is organized at our sector. So this increased attention, of course, has some challenges, but it also gives a lot of opportunities and made us capable of investing more in cybersecurity as a sector. And now I will be going to the cybersecurity baseline, why you all joined today. So we have noticed that there were multiple needs from the sector. We had like process owners. These are basically the people that are responsible for a process but not so technical, and they asked us, well, we want a set of rules that is clear to us, that tell us what to do, and preferably even how. The system owners, the people that are basically technically minded, also expected a clear set of rules from us, and instead of us telling them, you need to secure your system. The project managers had also a need where they wanted to take the requirements, the security requirements, into their projects so that they do not hear complaints from the security department that their product or service is not secure enough. But at the same time, we had also a lot of vendors. We have a lot of vendors in our sector, and SURF, where it's logical to do so, we basically position ourselves between our institutions and the vendors so that the vendors talk with us instead of talking with the 150 different customers. And also our institutions requires constantly from their vendors to have their information security in order. And the vendors were sick of having so many different requirements from so many different institutions. And also our procurement specialists wanted something to take with their tenders, because we carry a lot of tenders as a semi-public organization. And the security professional, of course, wanted to carry out assessment on the suppliers, but also wanted to share the results of our assessments that are carried by our other institutions. So all these different needs were basically the reason why we started working on the security baseline. So again, the background, different institutions had different baselines or standard set. Different also assessment and standard frameworks leave a lot of room for interpretation. For example, the ISO standards, the ISO 27001 and 2 still leaves a lot of interpretation for how you can actually implement these measures. But we have also noticed that suppliers are not tested uniformly from like some suppliers who would have a lot of different measures that are expected from them to meet. And every institution was reassessing every supplier, and there's very little knowledge sharing happening. So the goal of the cybersecurity baseline was to basically have a clear and concise security measures for all education institutions in the Netherlands. It ideally should tell them how to comply with the measures instead of just telling them they need to be secure. It's meant to be used by the institutions itself internally, but also for assessing vendors and intenders. We wanted to share the results of these assessments with other institutions so that we can work more efficiently. And we also wanted to have we have different measures in the baseline so that you can select it from the perspective of the organization, process owner, and system owner. I will show in a bit what I mean with that. So the result, what we ended up with was a control set or a measure set with 109 controls or measures that are all operational, concrete, and specific. They were mainly based on, it was a combination of the ISO 27001, 2, and the SIS controls. We built various functionality in it, but most importantly is the security level so that you can filter using the CIA triad, so the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, but also the responsibility. Is it something that the system owner needs to implement, or is it something that the process owner needs to care of it, or maybe the organization. And we made it available as an online tool, which I will also open in a second. Maybe I can explain the theory and then show it. So we have a filter that's called responsibility, which is for the organization. So is it something that the organization should implement, the process owner or the system owner? We have the controls divided in 16 domains, like identity and access management, logging, monitoring, and such technically oriented domains. You can filter on low, medium, high for confidentiality, integrity, or availability. But most importantly, it's still a risk-based. We still advise to use it risk-based, because the context of the organization is also an important factor when selecting the relevant controls. The controls themselves, what are they? So they basically contain a small description of what the control is about, which technical category does it belong. Each control has a classification for the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, the responsibility, of course, and the specification, which is an elaboration on how to implement the control measure, and where we also try to link relevant templates or articles that can help in implementing these measures. And we have mapped this framework to other standards like the ISO 27001 or the self-assessment framework, which is yet another framework that our institutions use. So this is where I would like to actually show it to you. So this is the website, and luckily to you, it's actually available in English. I can put the link in the chat so you guys also can visit it if you want to follow along. So this is the different categories that I mentioned. You can filter on crisis and incident response. You then get only the measures that are relevant for that. You can filter on logging and monitoring. Other filters are, of course, as I've mentioned, the CIA triad. You can filter on only the relevant controls for high availability systems or low confidentiality systems. And this is the responsibility filter. So basically, it tells who is the most logical responsible person for this. Is it the system owner, or is it something that the whole organization should provide, or is it for the process owner? And let's actually click on one to show you what it exactly entails. So this is a control about patch management, and this is the description that is relevant, what we actually mean by this control. So it's about having patches or security fixes for different systems. And then these are the requirements that we want to see within that patch management measure. So we want to see only supported the services to be used. We do not want to see end of life or end of support software. The software that is used needs to be tested and have a defined patch cycle, and so on and so on. It's very broad. Basically, it contains a lot of controls. But again, it only does so because we had so many stakeholders that we needed to make happy. And if I go back to my presentation, so as maybe you have noticed, but the control set is available at sec.surf.nl, which is our security expertise center. It's basically a portal for our members to find everything that is security related that we do at SURF, and this is basically their starting point. So if you want to click around, feel free, but it's only available in Dutch, unfortunately. Maybe the question is not, maybe it's better to give my colleague Sandy the floor so that she could tell how we use it and the challenges that are associated with it, and then we come back to the question. Is that okay, Eva?
Yes, that is perfect.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Sandy, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Well, it's also very good now you've seen how it should work in theory, but to dive into a little bit of how it works in practice. And when we started planning this meeting a while ago already, I think in the end of last year, I hoped that I would have many examples on how enthusiastic our vendors were to fill in the document, and that we would have done already some audits on some vendors. Because what is good to mention is that you see that the institutions can choose their controls, but what they actually then need to do is to send and to talk with the vendors on to fill in those questions. And when they fill that in, it is the possibility also to actually perform an audit on that specifically security baseline questions. And to do that, to not let that only happen by the institutions themselves, we as SURF can take a role in that we do that with a certain kind of vendors. I will talk a little bit more about how I build up my service around that. But just to focus on this, the last few months, so we started working actually with this security baseline, and we found that it is much harder to get it across the line towards these vendors. We had some vendors we were talking with, also in the team of Abdul, who we're talking with, and initially they were quite enthusiastic. Okay, let's do it. Let's go over these questions and let's fill this in. But as we've been experiencing also the past few years with our communication with vendors, in generally on topics of privacy, security, compliance, is that there are a lot of questions with that on how they should do it, what should they answer, but also are they allowed to do it? So it is really hard to get the real attention of these vendors to talk with the right people in the organizations, and we definitely need a buy-in from C-level to get them actually work with us on these general topics, not only on the security baseline itself, but in general on compliance and DPIA questions. We just had a perfect presentation on also the DPIA on Microsoft. That's what we also have been doing. We'll tell a little bit more about it later also. But generally, so this product is a very beautiful product, but there is a process before that, and that is getting the relation with the vendor, and that they do understand exactly what do we ask from them, what do they need to do, and are they willing to cooperate with us. They do see us as, specifically also in the first part, as an auditor. They don't want to talk to us or even to fill this in, because they think they will be assessed and that it is all about shaming and blaming. But that is not what we are up to. If you go over to the next slides. Yes, thank you. So what we do is that we need to do a lot of explanation to them, what we actually do need from them. So we do need to tell that they that it's in the general interest that they work with us, that they work either with the institutions or even with SURF for the institutions, and that if they can show us really an insight in how their product works by filling in this security baseline. Sorry, sometimes I have that. But also working on the bigger topics with the DPIA, the risk assessment, that we do not want to actually say that our institutions are not allowed to use the product anymore, because not using Microsoft, not using Zoom, not using Google or the smaller products will be devastating for the institutions. As you might be aware, there are no real other alternatives. So that is not what we aim for. What we do aim for is that we explain to them what, and specifically also to the American bigger vendors, what we actually need for our institutions in, well, from the SURF perspective, for our members, but also on a broader perspective on that, because we do generally talk with them how they can upgrade their service also for whole Europe. So what we do agree upon, and we just finished our update DPIA on Zoom. One of the big outcomes is that every agreement we made with them, so it's not only security baseline related, but privacy risk related, and also the data processing agreement, is that every agreement we make with them is generally available for all European customers. And Zoom promised us that like for 95% of every agreement what we made is general available. So also for every institution in Europe, so also for you. And that is actually where we aim for with these big vendors. But what we also need to be able to show them, and that they really see what of a benefit also for their service it can be. Because also if you fill in this security baseline and you find out that the vendor needs to change not only on the juridical part, but also on the technical part, because I can use one other example of what also in the Zoom case is that we see and found that they use cookies, which they even weren't thinking of themselves. It was kind of legacy. So we showed to them that these cookies were in the system, and it took them a couple of months to clear that up, to get it out of their system. But it's good if they do it so that they can show that they are, well, we will never say that they are compliant with any kind of legislation, or also not the GDPR, because then we put a stamp on it. But it's not ours to say that it is always good enough, but at least we can say that the product is safe to use. And so if they can show that, it will also bring them a lot more revenue within the educational sector. So that is actually what we aim for. So if we go to the next slide. So if then really miracles can happen, we can see that, well, with the bigger vendors where we have been talking about, Microsoft already was a nice presentation on, we've also been negotiating with them, and Google, and so miracles can start to happen, and that's on two sides, or three even, technical, organizational, and juridical, they can provide then solutions so that you and our institutions can make use of the product safely, and specifically also to make a decision on which product to use. Because one other part, also Abdul mentioned that already, is that if you have high sensitive data, you need to have other measures than if it's general and not sensitive at all. So then you can pick and choose as an institution for yourself what you actually need and want. And for instance, that's also what we say, and this also with the security baseline, but also with our general risk analysis work, is that as SURF we can provide 80 or 90% of the work, but the eventual decision still is to be made by the institutions itself. But together with the vendors, SURF, and our institutions, we can create safe and privacy-friendly tools for research and education all through Europe. I do hope that in the coming months, yes, thanks. No, it's fine. You can go to the next slide. I do hope that in the coming months, I will also get their cooperation on the specific part of the security baseline, and that then I can actually show how they react on the specific questions, what kind of questions do raise good questions and not. The fun part is that we do see a different kind of sentiment towards it, is that also the other side, is that last week or the week before, another vendor actually came towards us and, hey, we hear about your security baseline. Can you show us how to fill it in, and can you help us, because we are questioned about this by our institutions who make use of it. and we want to do it with you together. So luckily also, I showed you the difficulties, but also the good part is that if it starts running and people start talking about it, vendors will see for themselves that, hey, these other vendors are doing this, our institutions are, our clients are asking for this, let's go for it. Also on the DPIA part, we have a vendor actually coming up to us and say, we want to do this process with us. So we do also see changing the sentiment around that. And I hope that will bring some real results like by the end of this year. After filling is, if we go back to that security baseline, we also do want to do actual audits on that. But yeah, unfortunately, we haven't done that yet. I hope to have some more information on that later, how that actually works. But we do have an organization who is able to do real audits, waiting for us so that they can go actually towards one of these vendors when they filled in the document and to see whether or not what they filled in is actually true. As said, this work, what we do on this as serve for our members is embedded in a whole service, which we offer since the beginning of this year to our institutions, which is called Serve Vendor Compliance, and where I've been working on the past 2.5 years to get that actually established within Serve. I'm in another team as Abdul is. I am specifically situated in a team of procurement and contracting, because this work all relates to the contractual agreements with our vendors. So that's why this team is situated in procurement and contracting. And what we do is we conduct risk assessments on vendors from DPIAs, DTIAs, make agreements with data processing agreements, do this security risk analysis. But also, you see there's a lot of work what needs to be done before we actually can start these risk analysis and security baseline checks, but also the work afterwards. So also that's why we've now just published a new update DPIA on Zoom. We've published the first DPIA in 2022. We made agreements with them on how they should mitigate the risk which were still left. And now 2 years later, we've been monitoring their agreements and also supervising that. And now we can provide a new update on that, where I can say that Zoom is one of our main examples where we can see that this work, what we do actually can work out quite good, because within the COVID period, Zoom had a lot of issues and we said it's not safe to use Zoom. And now we can say that Zoom is like one of the most vendors who took this upon them and changed their way of working, and that they are now quite safe to use. So we do this whole vendor risk process from the beginning to the end to provide, and also to provide information now what we do to you, but also to our members with cookbooks actually. So I heard also that there's no cookbook for Microsoft. That might be a good one to pick up. To cookbooks and all that kind of information. Webinars, we will provide a webinar on the 7th of May. Actually, I will send you the invitation later, because we will be doing the presentation in English. So you might be able to attend too. On the 7th of May in the morning, 1 hour with Zoom actually on the actual outcomes of this new DPIA 2024. Another good thing to mention that this is publicly value driven is that we do have the backing of our government in the Netherlands, and that also helps very much. And our DPA, the Dutch Protection Authority, we just had a discussion last week with them personal, and they really said that they are quite happy that we as SURF take this role upon us, that we do this in general for the institutions, all this work, because if every institution themselves do this work, it is a lot of work. You also heard talking about that. It is hard work, but also asking, and that's also one of the reasons why we had this security baseline, is every institution talks to this vendor. It's a lot of work for the vendor, a lot of work for the institutions. And if we do that all together, we can create a lot more efficiency, and then also a lot of good work in that. I also put the link to our website where you can find more information on our projects, SURF vendor compliance, where you can also find, indeed, thank you so much. Also already the published work on Google, Microsoft, but also later on the new work on Zoom, etc. If you go to the next slide, thanks. We have a whole agenda, and this agenda is created together with our members. So we do not pick up vendors where SURF thinks is interesting. No, we actually have a communication with our institutions on which actual vendors and products we take up for us. And this is the agenda we have for 2024. So also interesting, we've been talking with Adobe, AWS specifically, and that's where also probably we are trying also to not only do the privacy risk assessment, but also incorporate the security baseline in that. And we are also, we do normally like 8 projects per year, because you heard it also before, it's a lot of work. So we have been creating a whole new team around that within SURF. We do that now with 8 to 10 people, and we will be growing on that. So we do 8 projects per year, and this outcome will generally be published in English and will be available on our website, so that you can also make use of that. And we will be working on this for the coming years. So that basically is what I wanted to share with you, and to leave some time also for questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Sandy. One last recommended read. I posted the link in the chat. There is a New York Times article about how the Netherlands is taming big tech, and it is basically about the effort of my colleague Sandy, her team, and the collaboration that we have with our government. I don't think you need an account to read it. So feel free to check it out, or maybe you need to sign in with Google. But it's a very interesting read nonetheless.
Yeah, that's really a good one. And I've got to mention that also last week we had another publication on that. It is in the Dutch, it's also written in Dutch, but probably you can translate it. I will send that link to in a Dutch specific, article, a Dutch article also on how actually the work, not so much on the content, but how this relation works with vendors. Yes, thank you.
Yes, it was. Thank you for the previous presenters for giving the updates. There's a lot going on, a lot of good work being developed. I know a lot what is happening at SURF, but also to hear from University of Düsseldorf is interesting work that you're all doing. Looking at what's everything that is going on that we hear about, I want to take a little step back and look at a bit from where we started. So to go a little back in time to look at where we started with security baselines. Let me first tell you a little bit about GÉANT. I'm a cybersecurity lead at GÉANT. I'm working at GÉANT already for 4 years almost. And before that, I started in higher education the beginning of 2000 at Delft University of Technology. I moved to SURF in about 2007. And what you see here is the timeline from GÉANT, how GÉANT has developed from 1992 on. Well, the timeline here goes to 2014, but we are still 10 years. We continued in the same kind of development and larger networks and more products over the last 10 years. What we are doing as GÉANT, I know that there are a number of people that aren't that familiar with GÉANT. We connect Europe. We connect research and education in Europe. We have a network connecting all countries. We are a member organization where all national research and education networks are participating in. And we connect all universities, research centers in Europe, and we connect them with the rest of the world. That's what we do. And apart from the network, we have a number of value-added services. And on top of that, we do a lot with identity management. I think you're all using Eduroam. now and again. That's what we promote. Identity management, federated identity management, cloud services, and security services. That's what we add on top of that. Now, if we go back looking at baselines and where that all started, at least in the Netherlands, back in 2008, a couple of guys sat together at SURF, and they said, we need to do something to get more control in it. And they started this together. They developed 3 maturity models. There was the SIM3 model, which is mainly aimed at incident response. There was an identity maturity model, and there was a model for security management. Those 3 guys, SIM3, you may know Don Stickford, who is very much involved with the security incident response community. He is the one who has been running the SIM3 model and is still running that model. Peter Jurg, who worked on the identity management model, and me as a result after my master thesis, where I started researching maturity models. I worked on the 4 aspects model, as it was called back then, for measuring security. Now that 4 aspects model that looked was mainly aimed risk-based, and it was looking at the proactive measures you can take, reactive measures, an integrated approach of security, and the continuity, the business continuity, which seemed to be the most logical things back then. In 2007, 2008, there weren't many maturity models. If you now go and look, you find a lot of them, maturity models and baselines. I'll get back to why we made that choice with this four aspects for approaches for security, and why you need to why you not just can use the ISO 27000, for instance. Looking at how these models have developed from 2000 on until now, you see that that SIM3 model is still around. It's been developed, it's been used, and it's a well-recognized method for looking at the maturity of incident response teams of CSIRTs. It's a trusted introducer program, which is used not only within research and education, but also in a lot of other sectors worldwide. The TI program and the TI accredited teams, your own team may be amongst them. Identity management had a bit of a more bumpy ride, and there isn't really an identity management maturity model, but it's resulted in models like Certify, which are used in federated identity management systems in communities and in large federations for agreeing on what needs to be done for securing your federated identity management. It's being widely used within the WISE community, within the REFEDS community. They all know about this, and they do exercises with Certify as well. The security management model, which I started in 2008, I took that to SURF, and that resulted in SURF audits, and it resulted eventually in what Abdul was presenting, the SURF security baseline. Been quite a long time working on that, and it's interesting to see that it's still alive, and that's being very much developed and being a basis for a lot of discussions within the Netherlands. At GÉANT, we I think 5 years ago in the international project, we started working on the GÉANT security baseline, specifically aimed at NRENs. Now, if you look at all these baselines and what the differences are and what the common ground is, I think most of them, it doesn't really matter which baseline you use. The most important is that you agree on what you do with the baseline and where you use it for and how you use it. The GÉANT security baseline, as we developed it, is specifically aimed at organizations, not at suppliers, but at organizations, at research and education organizations. We have recently been using this for helping smaller organizations, which have only a small number of staff and which don't have large security teams. to help smaller organizations with security boot camps to look at how their security is currently looking like and what they can do to improve. And those security boot camps are 3-day workshops with preparations, with preparation interviews, and then 3-day workshops for helping the organization, the small organization, to make to cover the basics of their security. Now, all these security baselines, they're all based on ISO 27000. 27001 is the security management system, which is a standard, and 27002, which looks at the controls that you should need. Now, then you can ask, why not just use that international standard that's recognized, that's standardized, that's being maintained? The main issue there is that it's too complicated. It's not too complicated to control your security. I think that the security professionals should be using it, but it's too complicated to explain it to your management. The management needs to look at 4 aspects or 7 clusters of things. This is an early view of how we in 2013 looked at SURF audit, how we looked at the benchmarking, and we looked at 6 clusters of controls, which you can explain to your management. All these clusters, how are we doing? How do we score? How do we compare with the others? This picture shows you how the scores of different organizations are and where you are and where the average is. So in my discussions with the board members from universities, it always comes to how are we doing compared to others? They don't want to be on the lowest part of the scale, and they don't want to be best in class. They want to be somewhere a little above average. Well, with these kind of presentations, you can show that, and that's something that you cannot show with ISO 27000 on its own. This is an old version of what SURF was using. At GÉANT, we look at 4 parts in the security baseline. We look at the policy, we look at the people, we look at threats, and we look at the operations. With all kind of details, so you can zoom in where you need it, but each of these clusters get a score when you do the baseline analysis, which is easy to show to your management, and which is easy to show if you have improvement or where you need to improve and where your strong points and weak points are. Now, what does this all mean? This all means that I think that ISO 27001 will stay the basis for this. I've been at a conference for the last 2 days about the NIS, the new legislation, new European legislation on security, which a lot of organizations will get into and will need to work with. And there we had discussions with legislators and with supervising bodies, and it looks like a certification amongst ISO 27001 will be the way to go if you in Europe want to comply with NIS2. Now, don't be afraid. Most of you will not be in scope of NIS2, but some of you will be. The difference between security baseline that SURF is using, the security baseline that GÉANT is using, and the ISO 27000 is that with the ISO 27000, that's international recognized across borders, across sectors. But not everyone needs that. A university will not need an ISO 27000 certification, but the university will need a method, a common method, a common terminology, which an agreed upon meaning to discuss with her peers, other universities, how they are doing, that they are a trustworthy partner. So that is what I think the main message is. If we look at these baselines, there are a lot of baselines. Choose the one with your sector, with the people that you're working together with the organizations that you're working together with, so that you can do it in the same way, get trained all together and share experience in that. And ISO 27 for most organizations is too complicated. but the baselines as they have been developed by GÉANT and by SURF help you a lot in making the first steps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alf. Oliver, your turn now.
Hello, that's my presentation, information security and privacy requirements in procuring third-party cloud services. This was done with that. This is my little project that I started simply to get some relief from a persistent pain, which is especially that the checking of technical organizational measurements. Wow, TOM. I just will abbreviate it as TOM. This is me, just in case that my camera wouldn't have worked, this is me. I am head of the staff unit information security at the University of Stuttgart and CISO of Stuttgart University. That should be enough. Everything else is just to wag a little around with the certificates, which is not relevant here. TOM and information security. At first glance, TOM seems to be a data protection topic. Does everybody agree? That's true, but since I'm running the ISMS of University of Stuttgart, we just thought a little further and said, well, all important processes shall be managed by the ISMS. At least all processes processing valuable information. And now you can argue if personal data is important. The thing is, it is protected by law, hence it is by default important and should be processed. All the processes that are processing personal data should be part of the ISMS. Up to 2022, the assessing or the assessment of technical and organizational measurements was a two-track operation. We checked it, and the Data Protection Office checked them as well. But this is double work, so we just decided to cooperate and set up a process to check it just once, so that all the requirements from both parties will be fulfilled or will be met. At the moment, there has been some changes. The assessment of TOM for all the procurements and from all the how they're called in English, I don't know. AVV. the agreements for processing personal data from in third parties is in my responsibility. So we had just to find a way to check TOM efficiently. Since there is no GDPR approved procedure as the moment or as of yet established, and there is also no data protection certification, at least in Germany, we just had to think about we could do that. Now we just had a look at GDPR and thought maybe GDPR would help us, but GDPR just stipulates what has to be checked or what must be met, in special the warranty objectives, but now how it must be checked. So GDPR doesn't help in that special task. There are various approaches in Germany, especially the Standard Datenschutzmodell or the standardized data protection model, but they do not focus on information security in the sense of the standards. So they do not help either. Do the standards help, especially ISO IEC 20071, TISAX, or BSI basic, how is it called? Basic protection? Well, somehow that. Basic security, basic Grundschutz, which is a very German thing. They also specify what has to be checked, but they don't help in how this should be checked, or just they do not provide a way that is accepted how to check them. That is commonly accepted how to check them. Non-normative ISO documents and the conglomerate of the BSI Grundschutz do gives some help, partly, but not in a unified way. Described auditing procedures can help, e.g. ISO 19011, but data protection in the standards are usually just referenced, like you have to do data protection, but we don't tell you how to do that. So what did we do? Why are the standards still necessary or still valuable in TOM assessment? The first thought was I couldn't care less about information security standards for the TOM audit. Could I? Of course not, because standards are becoming increasingly important, at least at our university, because third-party funders are increasingly demanding certificates, especially either IAC ISO 20071 or the German automotive industry, which is a very big funder. They require TISAX labels. I don't know if you're familiar with TISAX labels. Probably not. It's also a very German thing, but they're using them internationally. And they just, all the members of the VDA, which is the association, the German National Association of the Automotive Industry, they force their members that they have to force their partners in industry and in education to have TISAX levels when doing project with them. So at the university, we have a lot of institutes that do projects with the automotive industry, and they all have to get some TISAX labels. A very interesting thing, this is especially for German auditors or German listeners, German audience here, is that by BSI Grundschutz, which is this very German thing, is not accepted, or any label, any test date or whatever certificate. It's not a certificate, it's a little less that you can do with BSI are not accepted by the industry. So we have to focus on TISAX and ISO, and hence we just did what we did. This little project also just took into consideration mainly ISO and TISAX. Now what we did is we tried to find an approach to do a joint TOM assessment for data protection and information security. We just defined a set of requirements for the procedure, which says, which are namely, measurements must be documented in the ISMS. This is the information security requirement, or the main information security requirement. And TOM must be, the TOM audit must be, the result of the TOM audit must be suitable for DPAs, for data protection, not assignments, whatever. I'm sorry, I just forgot. Huh? What?
Assessment.
Assessment. Is that right? Okay. And record of processing activities, which are the two things that we do have to document when we do the DPAs. We have to do with third parties that are processing data for us, and the record of processing activities is the internal like directory where all the processes that are processing personal data are recorded and updated. This is the data protection requirement, or the main data protection requirement. We just wanted to do one TOM audit for both subjects. Of course, this is the main requirement for the whole project. And one real big requirement within the process of the university is that this process had to be integrated in the procurement process of the university, or the procurement processes of the university right from the start. So not like everything is bought already, and then they come along and say, oh, could you just bolt some security thing on my project? This usually goes horribly wrong. We wanted to have a standardized structure based on the standards. It should be adaptable to different scenarios, not only for cloud procurement or cloud services procurement. It should be usable in procurement or direct procurement and tendering. It should be easily maintained and documented as well, or documentation and other requirements. And it should be simple and low effort for bidders, providers, and the evaluation. So bidders and providers are the receiving end who want to sell us something, and the evaluation is that what I have to do. Implementation. We developed it in cooperation with Zendas. Maybe you know that. It's the Central Data Protection Office of the Universities of Baden-Württemberg, of the state of Baden-Württemberg in Germany, the southwest state of Germany. And it is where it should be a profile of generic and atomic requirements. Why generic is quite clear, but why atomic? They should be answerable with a yes, or fulfilled or not fulfilled. It defines must not, should and should not requirements, of course. Don't know why this is smaller here. It is implemented as a questionnaire and a checkable questionnaire, which just gives the requirement and then a line of checkboxes that the provider can fill in, and it says this requirement is fulfilled, or it is fulfilled from, and then a date, like in 3 months or something like that. It is not fulfilled or not applicable. We also provide free text fields for important descriptions, or any descriptions the bidder or provider feels has to give or feels to be obliged to give, like detailed information or a explanation why something is not fulfilled or not applicable. We reserve ourselves audits at any time, not only in the procurement process, but also if a bidder has won and earned a contract, then we just reserve ourselves that we can audit this solution at any time. And it should be, of course, in the first place, but now it is integrated into the centralized and decentralized procurement processes. What is the centralized procurement process? It is, I just will detail that a little bit later, so that you know we do have a central procurement department. We have 2 first applications. The first one that I used, that was the original, the source of everything, like patient 1. It is the procurement of remote maintenance services, mainly in building control systems or building automation systems that usually do not process any personal data. So we do not have, or I do not have, any data protection requirements in this questionnaire as of yet. But since there are, of course, or there will be remote maintenance services, like for software or something like that, where there is a processing of personal data in that software, we will need the requirements for data protection in a later version. And the prominent one, which I will just show you in a few seconds, is the procurement of third-party cloud services, which was the main pain or reason why I started this project. It focuses mainly on security requirements for data, of course, and whereas the procurement of remote maintenance services mainly focuses on the access whole, whatever you call it, like the maintenance access that the companies use to maintain our systems, or maintain the systems they sold us. Now this one, the second one, is the more interesting at the moment, I think, because everyone wants to do things in the cloud and wants to go cloudy. And it, of course, it has special requirements on data protection, like from birth. It is in use like the other one, and it is especially in use for central systems and systems at institutes and facilities. So this is decentralized systems and institutes. It is integrated, both are integrated in the procurement process, and the university's Central Procurement Bureau has integrated this questionnaire in the procurement, and of course, especially the tender documents that are used when doing bigger procurement projects. The cloud questionnaire integrates all the Zendesk requirements on data protection. We already used it in several procurement and bidding processes, so it is tested. The evaluation, the thing that I have to do, became extremely fast compared to the older evaluation the older evaluation process I had to do before, where I just got unformatted information from different bidders in different, either unformatted or in different formats, and in different sizes. Like one bidder just gave me like 3 or 4 pages, and the next one gave me 500 pages, which makes it extremely hard to do a comparable evaluation, which is also sometimes a legal problem, or can lead to legal problems. It allows the exclusion of unsuitable bidders, and it allows to do a order of suitable bidders. Unsuitable bidders are bidders that do not fulfill or do not meet all the must requirements, and the order of suitable bidders in view of information security, or from the focus of information security, it can be done by the should requirements or should not requirements, which are not crucial when selecting, because the Fachabteilung, the institution, or whoever wants to procure this cloud process, of course, has the first word in which bidder to choose from the list of suitable bidders. And just if they have more than one bidder that they would choose, and which they say, we don't care if we take like bidder 1 or bidder 2, this order of suitable bidders in security side comes into effect. The checking. If we then have selected a winner, some of the verification documents may have to be checked, which is then done in a contract situation. In the first place, where all the bidders just tell us if they meet any requirements or not, or the requirements that we have formulated or not, they do not have to provide any verification document, which is quite an advantage for them, because they don't have to tell us any secrets. And as soon as we have a contract with the winner, then we can just require the verification documents on some of the requirement, the verification documents, I'm sorry, of the requirements, which is necessary especially for data protection. Requirements that are marked as fulfilled in this questionnaire are deemed to be contractually owed. So if they just check fulfilled and cannot deliver one of these requirements, they are obliged to deliver them, or we can just step back from the contract and put all the costs that result of this stepping back on this bidder. This is checked legally already, and it is therefore it is put into the documents that are given out by the Central Procurement Bureau of the University of Stuttgart. It is very little effort to fill in this questionnaire if the bidder or provider is, or the product, let's say the product, the focus must be, or the scope must be in the product at least, is ISO IEC 20007 certified. The next version of this document will be published in the near future on our website. So it will be free, or it will be, everybody can use it if they want. They can change it, of course, but it will be downloadable from our website. This is how it looks like at the moment. Of course, it's still in German. This is the front page. It says who are the players in this game, like the University of Stuttgart, the Institute for Clouds. And this is the bidder, the company Super Cloud Services, and the service that is sold.
Oliver,
Cloud.
I'm
Yes.
so sorry, just have to remind you about the time.
Yes, I do. And
Sorry.
this is how the questionnaire looks. It is broken down in atomic requirements that can be answered and fulfilled, or not fulfilled, or not applicable, or fulfilled from. This is the project that I have started behind it, which is a general catalog of requirements that shall be usable to produce new profiles and renderings like questionnaires. The outlook is that requirements and profiles shall be generally integrated in all the procurement process and decision-making processes at the university. We will do profiles for various procurement objects, and also, of course, checklists and questionnaires for direct awards of contracts up to 5,000 euro, small tenders up to 20,000 euro, and ordinary tenders over 20,000 euros, which these two are already integrated in the processes, and this has to be fulfilled, or has to be implemented as of yet. Checklist and templates for security concepts for institutes, projects, and so on, security guidelines, documentation, so whatever. The important thing, what I want to implement, is that we do have uniform requirements and text everywhere. That's it.
Thank you so much, Oliver. I would like to invite now Garvan to have his final presentation, and after that we will have the Q&A session. Thank you so much, Oliver.
Pleasure.
Great stuff. Good morning, everybody. So I'm not going to do death by PowerPoint, but I will show two small screens. So my name's Garvan McFeeley, and I work in HEAnet, which is the Irish NREN. So we do what SURF does, and actually we collaborate quite extensively with SURF, and we have done some joint procurements, and we are very familiar with all the fantastic work that Sandy and the compliance team in SURF are doing. And just a note, I don't think Sandy said it loudly enough in her presentation. The improvements in the Zoom DPA are available to everybody on this call. It's not just specifically done for SURF, which would have been an easy way to do it, right? They would have done a custom job probably quite quicker, right, Sandy? So, so I'll show you. Obviously, what the world needs right now are more checklists, right? Conscious that not everybody, not every university, not every institution is as well funded as Oslo University, with 350 fantastic IT professionals on board, and are different scales and different sizes and different levels of maturity. So I'm going to show you two little sort of checklists that we have, right, that have been developed inside the GÉANT project. We'd obviously share them out to everybody, and they're good to go. We will be modifying one of them later on this year and into next year, but but we're a bit tied up with our OCRA 2024 tender. So I'll just share my screen. So hopefully you're looking at a spreadsheet. So this is actually a checklist developed by our friends in NII, the Japanese NREN, and they have shared this with us, and we've Europeanified it to make it more to tune it to local European flavor. We will be updating this, as I say, it'll be into next year before we get to go have a good go at it. But it's got a lot of common sense stuff. So people who maybe are a little earlier down the track, or you know, haven't been through the ringer as much as this, or don't have access to, you know, as deep a pool of information security experts or cloud experts as others, but they've got a very sensible checklist of, you know, things you should be worried about, right? How does the contract look? Some fundamental details about that, about authentication, about multi-factor authentication, everybody's favorite, about reliability, about their SLA. All of these things are detailed, and they have in Japan, all of the major public cloud providers like Microsoft and Amazon and et cetera, have all completed this. And just a thought is that everybody's asking providers to fill in things, right? To fill in things like this or something like it. And it strikes me that there's a lot of duplication, right? So inside countries, a lot of universities are going to, it doesn't matter who the provider or what the service is, but there are a lot of people going to pretty much the same questions. And I think it might be handy if we could build up a registry or a library, a little resource of completed ones of things like these, right? That then maybe you only need to ask 2 really niche questions for you, rather than asking the same 10, 20, 40, 105 questions of every supplier. So maybe just something to put into the little gray cells. So there's some really good detail in this. Obviously we'll share it, people can have a read, see what things they may be able to glean from it. And the second thing that we have in our little arsenal of stuff, again, nice and lightweight, not shouldn't need particularly wild skills to conclude. We did a little thing in the project to look at GDPR transfer guidelines for data transfer impact assessments. Right. Obviously, it has been reviewed by a lawyer, right? So it says, you know, this does not constitute legal advice, right? Nice caveat there. But we've looked at things that people get excited about, right? About personal data. Where is it? Who can get at it? Where is it going, right? So there's a lot of, as Christoph said earlier in his presentation, there's a lot of what's the reality and what's the perception of things, right? So we've come up with a little transfer checklist. Yeah, does your data have personal data? Well, if it doesn't, that's fine, right? These things are not a concern. But is it resident in EU, EEA? Well, then all the providers are subject to GDPR, so at a high level, tick, right? But if it's outside, is there an equivalence? Is there an adequacy decision? Do you have local laws that make stuff easier or more difficult to do? And then, you know, when you're looking at a sort of a menu of potential providers, you might be able to eliminate some from the list based on, well, they're obviously not a good fit because of A, B, C, D, and so they're out of the mix. We've developed a little checklist. You know, some of this is very basic stuff, but for some people in institutions, it might be still revelatory. You need to understand the data, you know, what's being processed, why it's being processed. You know, what are and these might trigger people's thought processes on what they should do. And then at a fundamental level, you know, everything should be encrypted all of the time, right? if somebody rocks up to you and they says, yeah, we've got this fantastic service, but you know, we don't encrypt the data at rest. Well, you shouldn't be talking to them. You know, get out of the 1990s. You know, and we've also come up down with a little transfer impact assessment, sort of process flow. Here are the things that you need to think about, and you know, just hopefully to help people, prompt them along that little journey. So, promised you no PowerPoint. So no PowerPoint there was. And that's sort of within the GN5 project, a couple of little things that might be useful tools for people's arsenals.